across the fruited plain of the internet on this lovely, lovely Friday as the week comes to a close. Let's make sure the tubes are still working. We didn't have any power outages this week. That was nice. We had, fingers crossed that doesn't happen. Feds in the circuit breakers again. I think it's working. That's tremendous. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live, the show that spotlights misconduct involving police, prosecutors, and politicians. My name is Robert Gouveia. I am a criminal defense attorney, and today we are talking about Big Fani Willis. Man, she's out in Georgia. She's really fanning it up out there. I mean, she's raging from the rooftops. And we're going to go through this letter because we know previously here on this channel, we've talked about Jim Jordan on the Judiciary Committee. He's got some questions for Big Fani because it feels like some of her prosecutions might be interfering with an election, might be an abuse of her discretion, might be using federal funds to go and investigate Trump. And it is a problem. Congress has a bunch of broad oversight. We know that the January 6th Select Committee could do whatever the heck they wanted. And so now for Congress to go and investigate Big Fani, it seems perfectly reasonable. But Fani is raging over this thing. And she wrote a nice letter back, and we'll go through it. And she's pretty fired up. I mean, there's been a lot of reaction to this thing. So we'll go through it and see what the biggest Fani in Georgia has to say. The biggest DA, right? The DA of Fulton County. It's huge. All right. So we've also got another interesting story because everybody is doing the Big Fani's so competent and she's so incredible and we've never seen anything quite like her. And she's like, just an all-star. But they have some goofy stuff going on over there. This is the special counsel, the special prosecutor. This guy's name is Nathan Wade, all right? This one of these guys here, I'm not exactly sure who it is, but we'll read through it. Wade and Campbell, probably this guy. And apparently they sent out attorney solicitations to co-defendants, okay? So a criminal defense lawyer, these guys, Wade and Campbell, they have a criminal defense law firm. And they were selected to be a special prosecutor for Big Fani, somebody outside of her office. So they went out to the private sector and said, hey, you guys are great. Brought him on as the special prosecutor. And then his law firm sent a solicitation to a defendant that he is prosecuting saying, we're great defense attorneys. You should give us a call and hire us. Derp. Not supposed to do that. Kind of a conflict of interest there. And so we're going to take a look at the advert and see what's inside of it. And then we'll see what happened because David Shafer actually filed a motion for a hearing saying, this is totally inappropriate. These guys are running amateur hour over there. And maybe there should be some sanctions for contacting me, soliciting me when you're prosecuting me. So we'll go through that. Fun stuff. Then we, earlier this week, talked about the Colorado lawsuit to keep Donald Trump off the ballots. And, I said this is the second draft, and the second draft looks a lot better than the first draft. The first draft came out from Florida Man, and now we have another one in Colorado. And so in Colorado, Donald Trump has now sought removal, right? They filed this one in state court, and Trump is seeking to take this whole thing to federal court, which I think is a good strategy because if he's going to be attacked with a bunch of Democrats nipping at his heels in all the various state courts around the country, he's going to have to do something to consolidate these and come up with a strategy. And it seems like the defense is going to be trying to remove this all to federal court immediately, which I think is probably a good strategy for him. So we're going to go through the federal removal filing. This is out of Colorado. This is going to be happening everywhere. Now, I wanted to play this clip, and this one is, I think, from Michigan and Minnesota, if I wrote those down correctly. Oh, Rob, typo here. Let's get this fixed. Sorry about that, everybody. All right, so don't judge me. Don't cancel me. All right, we're going to go through this because these are two secretaries of state, both Democrats. CNN brought them out, and they're saying this is a real big problem. We're going to have to really investigate this throughout the entirety of the election, and we're very concerned that this could go either way. And, this is a new novel thing of law, and so they're taking it very seriously, which means they're going to try to do this, man. And I'm just, concerned about it. So we'll listen to them talk about how they're going to remove a candidate from the ballots in order to save American democracy, right? The people have choices via the democratic process. And then suddenly they just take them off the ballot. So they're doing this hemming and haw thing, right? It's complicated we're thinking hard about it, and then they're just going to do it. We've also got Congress now taking some action. And here is the report. Jim Jordan is going to be sending over a letter to Jack Smith. Actually, the letter has already been sent. And he's inquiring about some problems within the special counsel's office. And we've talked a lot about this here. You remember this guy. He is a prosecutor called Jay Bratt. He's on Jack Smith's team. And Jay Bratt is the guy who allegedly was putting pressure on one of the co-defendants, Walt Nada, on his lawyer. He was telling the lawyer, you know, don't you want to be a judge in Washington, D.C. one day, Stanley? To the lawyer. And yeah, I submitted my application. So what about it? He's like, well, you know, it might be useful if you kind of worked with us, type of an implication. Obviously inappropriate. And we're going to see what Jim Jordan has to say about it. So this is Congress now sending letters to Jack Smith, the special counsel. And then we'll wrap it up. We've got some good clips from some Congress people. We've got an interesting one from this guy. You know him, Andrew Weismnn, former DOJ prosecutor, somebody who is, you know, very anti-Trump in my opinion. And he is now saying that there's some real possibility that that whole Hunter Biden plea deal, that diversion agreement, might in fact be valid. Oh man, you're kidding. Which means that Hunter Biden would be immune. Huh, go figure. And then that anybody else wouldn't be able to do anything as a result of it. Like they did exactly what they wanted to do. And so he'll say that this is all just a botched plea deal, you know, that they kind of screwed this thing up. I don't know about that. I feel like maybe this was all part of the plan all from day one, just to make sure Hunter got that immunity no matter what. He'll plead guilty to the other crimes. Nobody's going to, you know, care about those. But that's his position on it. Now, we've got a lot of reaction. Congress is getting pretty fired up about it. Ted Cruz says there's plenty of evidence here. Right, they are obstructing, and enough already. We got to start taking some action. Marjorie Taylor Greene doing the same, saying this is just Biden abusing his power. It's total corruption through and through. We got James Comer says this is the biggest scandal in American history. And Byron Donalds is also out there saying Joe Biden knew exactly what was going on. And so, my friends, as you can see, we've got a lot to get to today. It's a lovely Friday. We're here a little bit early because I've got this 2-day conference that I've been a part of. Yesterday, I had a great session, met some very cool guys from different parts of the world. One guy from Scotland, one guy from Dallas, Texas, talked to him. Former lawyer also as well, had a change in his career. We had a fun day at the event yesterday. I went virtually, so it was a nice attendance, but it was a lot of fun. And so I'm going to be doing day 2 on that. We did a members-only Genius debrief, which is the event that I went to yesterday. We did a little bit of a walk and talk yesterday. So if you're a member and you missed that, I dropped that late last night. It took forever to upload. But a debrief and a walk and talk dropped yesterday for our members in case you missed that, either on YouTube or on the locals. Now, we would love it if you did join as a member at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We are going to stick around today after the show's over for our members-only after party. And we'd love it if you joined us at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We'd love to see you over there. You can also join as a member on YouTube and get access to our private Telegram group where the chat never ends. It just goes on, my friends. We've got our new website, robertgovea.com. You can sign up for our daily newsletter that gets delivered to your inbox every morning after the show so you don't miss anything. And you can also read the various reports on the website in case you don't want to watch a full show or watch a full video. You can just get a nice summary of the content there. We also have our friends at Field of Greens. And my friends, we of course all want to be healthy and lose some of those leftover pandemic pounds. But you know, how sick are you of all the ads for the weight loss pills and the fad diets? You know, we've all been there. We've all done that. We know they just don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that and the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? I don't. Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight a healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look and feel healthier fast, but the greater proof is going to come at your next checkup when your doctor says, woo, you're looking good. You've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. So let's get you started. Head on over to fieldofgreens.com. You can save 15% with code Robert when you check out. And let's not forget, my friends, the vegetables want to be eaten. You're going to be bursting with green energy, the good kind. And it's all courtesy of our friends at fieldofgreens.com. And use code Robert. So you save. All right. And now it's time to get into the business on the day. Big Fani Willis, the biggest Fani in Georgia, is raging at Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan's on the Judiciary Committee over on Congress, and he sent a letter to Big Fani. And he said, hey, we've got some questions here. Your office might get federal funds. We know that you're doing all sorts of stuff that might overlap with what Congress is doing and Jack Smith's investigation. And so we have questions for you, Fani. And he sent this letter back on August 24th. And she's very unhappy about this, okay? She's raging, but I want to just give us a quick backdrop on what he sent. From the Judiciary Committee, he says, hey, Miss Willis from Fulton County, you indicted a bunch of people, 19 of them, 30 unindicted co-conspirators and other things. And just so you know, your indictment and your prosecution, they implicate substantial federal interest, all right? Like, hello, we've got an election coming up. We have questions about your motivation. You launched a new campaign fundraising website that literally highlighted your investigation into Trump. The forewoman on the grand jury that you convened bragged about her work during an unusual media tour. We heard from her. And there's been all sorts of complaints. The timing of this prosecution also has us concerned. In February, news outlets reported that you directed your office to open an investigation into Trump in 2021. Apparently, you sent a letter that your office was investigating this as a high priority thing. But why did you open it in 2021 and then suddenly 2.5 years later, boom, right when the presidential primaries are taking place, you're asking for a trial to be scheduled the day before Super Tuesday, Big Fani? Why are you trying to do this? And also, your indictment implicates federal interests, right? It seeks to criminalize internal deliberations within the DOJ. Trump was talking to people at the DOJ. You want to criminalize him for that? That's federal business. There are also aspects of the indictment that give rise to questions about whether you're trying to criminalize aspects of speech of federal officers. And us as Congress, we've got an obligation to protect the First Amendment. And so when you do stuff like this, it raises concerns about the supremacy clause of the Constitution, and we have the right to investigate it. Now, you also know that this indictment charges Trump, and we've got a substantial interest in protecting former presidents here against partisan hack prosecutors from state-level politicized offices. Third, we have questions about how Congress appropriates federal funds to you. There's questions about how Fani's office coordinated with Jack Smith during the investigation. You guys interviewed the same witnesses and so on. And the judiciary can investigate this. So look, Fani, given the weighty interests at stake here, okay, the weighty interests, all right, the weighty federal interests coming out of your Fani's office, what we have here are an interest in determining whether we need reforms. And so we want the following from you right now. This is what Fani's going to rage about. I mean, it's really going to come out heavy. Says that all documents and communications, blah, blah, blah. They want everything. Fani, send us your paperwork. Get it to us no later than September 7th. Then we look at the calendar. That date has come and passed. And so Jim Jordan sends this letter. All right, hey, we're Congress. Give us some answers, Fani. And she's not happy about it. And this is what she said in response. From the office of Big Fani Willis, the biggest Fani out of Fulton County, DA, in Georgia, the biggest Fani Willis in all of Georgia. She says in response, dear Jim Jordan, she sent it via overnight delivery. Says, hey, Jimbo, I received your letter on August 24th. As you know, we indicted a bunch of people, but I want you to know, Jim, beyond the recitation of the charges, your letter contains inaccurate information and misleading statements. And she says specifically, Jim, your attempt to interfere with obstruction with this investigation is literally obstruction and it's unconstitutional. Now she says, as you know, Chairman Jordan, oh, here we go. Sensing some attitude here. As you know, Chairman Jordan, The congressional power of inquiry is not unlimited. Congress is not a law enforcement or trial agency, and that function is reserved for other people, citing a bunch of stuff. Your letter, Jim, offends each and every one of these principles. Its obvious purpose is to obstruct a Georgia criminal proceeding and to advance outrageous partisan misrepresentations. As I make clear below, Jim, there is no justification in the Constitution for Congress to interfere with the state matter as you're attempting to do here. Furthermore, your note calls to mind another letter recently submitted to the House. And this is, oh gosh. Another letter recently submitted to the House Select Committee, and she's referencing a letter to Benny Thompson from the January 6th Select Illegally Constituted Committee, saying this unprecedented action serves no legitimate legislative purpose and would set a dangerous precedent. So she's I think referencing him. She's saying, you said that Congress can't do these things when you sent a letter to Benny. Says your letter also, Jim, offends the principles of state sovereignty. You're intruding upon Georgia's criminal authority. And as the Supreme Court held, and man, she's just doing a dump. All right, so look, see, this is just a big dump. This is just some, interns or, so-called prosecutors or whatever they've got over there, just dumping a bunch of case law. So you got this one, Lopez, Morrison, and generally some lawyers will think like, wow, this is like really sophisticated research. Oh my gosh, look at all this case law, blah, 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 blah. Right? You can just go and like find, law review articles, documents. You can go on Westlaw, LexisNexis, these different places and just print, just click a couple buttons and spit all this out, generate a bunch of head notes and all this stuff. And you just say, okay, I'm just going to copy and paste all of these different things. And because the law is so big, you can just parse out whatever you want. And so Big Fani's going to be pulling out all of this 10th Amendment stuff, as you can see. She's suddenly going to be a big states' rights person who thinks that states should have total sovereignty and that Congress has no role to play, which I think there's a lot of truth to that states do have a lot of sovereignty that they have abrogated in the name of complying with Congress. But the point is, this is her picking and choosing her arguments. I don't actually think she's a 10th Amendment person. She says, or whoever's writing this, who is in fact writing this, did she sign on this thing? Let's see. Did she sign this? She did. Fani Willis. All right. So she's taking credit for this. So she apparently did a bunch of research and, assembled this. So Fani says, in light of these principles, Jim, your attempt to invoke congressional authority to intrude upon or interfere with an active criminal case is flagrantly at odds with the Constitution. The defendants in this case have been charged under state law with committing state crimes. There is absolutely no support for Congress purporting to second guess or somehow supervise an ongoing criminal investigation or prosecution. She says that's a violation of Georgia's sovereignty and it's offensive and it will not stand, says Fani. I don't know what she's really going to do about it. But she says, hey, Jim, in addition, your demand for information regarding an ongoing criminal prosecution is offensive to any notion of separation of powers that recognizes the distinct roles of the executive and legislative functions of the government. As the Supreme Court has explained, the executive branch has exclusive authority and absolute discretion on whether or not to prosecute a case. And so she's citing more stuff. She says, indeed, and there's a lot of copy and paste case law here, but indeed, given that two of your requests concern any documents or communications among federal officials, we must note the position taken on similar matters by the DOJ. And so she's referencing a law review article over from Notre Dame and says the DOJ also has certain policy positions, blah, blah, blah. Bunch of copy and paste stuff right there. All right, give me 10 seconds. I had a doorbell ring, probably a package. Let me just grab it before it walks. 1 second. Here we go. All right, we're coming back. Getting plugged back in. All right. And we're back. So, Big Fani says, all right, Jim, given that your inquiry implicates core federalism and separation of power concerns, the law restricts your authority. And also, she continues. She says, hey, Jim, by the way, there are extremely good reasons why committees like yours have avoided interfering with trials. Sharing non-public information about pending criminal matters may violate ethical rules, which, as we're going to see, they don't care about. It may also prejudice defendants, victims, and witnesses and impact the integrity of the case. It could produce a bizarre dual track of discovery, and for these reasons, objections to a criminal investigation are properly raised at courts, in the courts of law, not through Congress. And man, this is just a lot of really copy and pasting. Fani, look at, it's just copy and paste, copy. Here, your letter, Jim, seeks the revelation of non-public and privileged information concerning my office's investigation and the prosecution of a specific case. Your public statements, Jim, and your letter itself make clear that you lack any legitimate legislative purpose for that inquiry. She says, Congress, your job description as a legislator does not include criminal law enforcement, nor does it include supervising a specific criminal trial, which of course is not what he's trying to do at all. It leads me to a critical point. Again, she copy and paste from somebody else. Your letter burdens the deliberate process privilege. She says, hey, Jim, beyond the many problems that I've already identified, your letter also fails to recognize the process privilege that protects us during our decision-making process. So here is the answers that I'm going to give to you. My voluntary responses to portions of your letter are below. So here's what she's going to answer. Woo. While settled constitutional law permits me to ignore your unjustified and illegal intrusion into an open state criminal prosecution, I will take a moment to voluntarily respond to parts of your letter, Jim. Chairman Jordan, she says, I tell people often, quote, deal with reality or reality will deal with you. Wow. Write that down, everybody. Okay, take your notepads out. Fani said, deal with reality or reality will deal with you. Brilliant. It is time that you deal with some basic realities, Jim. A special purpose grand jury made up of everyday citizens investigated for 10 months and made recommendations to me. A further reality is that a grand jury of completely different Fulton County citizens found probable cause against the defendant's name in this indictment. Face this reality, Chairman Jordan. The select group of defendants who you fret over in my jurisdiction are like every other defendant, entitled to no worse or better treatment than any other American citizen. Wow. This is pretty incredible. Legal writing. Oh my gosh. You know, they say be forceful in your writing, but deal with reality or reality will deal with you. Maybe that's the title of her next book. What a stupid joke. She's quoting herself in her own legal writings. What an idiot. Your notion that different standards of justice should apply to a select group of people is offensive. Here's another reality you must face, Jim. Those who wish to avoid felony charges in Fulton County, including RICO, should not commit felonies in Fulton County. If you don't want to be charged with a crime, don't commit crimes. Brilliant. Another brilliant one. Probably should write that one down too. In this jurisdiction, every person is subject to the same laws and same process. And because every person is entitled to the same dignity and held to the same standard, blah, blah, blah. Saying Trump's status as a political candidate cannot make him legally immune from criminal prosecution, which nobody has ever alleged. Not in this letter. The basic premise of your letter is wrong, which she must be making up now. The criminal defendant about which you expressed concern was fully aware of the investigation that we were conducting. I have no doubt that many Americans are also the subject of prosecutions, and That cannot bar a criminal investigation or prosecution, which is not what Jim was asking for. Jim asked for the following. He said, here, hey, Big Fani, I need the following information. I want documents. I want documents. Communications. I want documents about federal executive offices that you interface with. I want to know how you talk to Jack Smith. I want to know how you used federal funds. At not one point in his letter did he say anything about stop the prosecution. Trump's immune. Never came out one time. But Fani continues on in her deranged letter. Any notion to the contrary is offensive to our democracy, as though prosecuting your political opponent is not. All right. Says an explanation of the basic obligations of a prosecutor are below. So she says, hey, Jim, idiot. Your letter makes clear that you lack a basic understanding of the law. You're just on the Judiciary Committee, but you're really stupid, though. You don't understand our practice or our ethical obligations, and so let me copy and paste more in my letter to you. As I explained above, the defendants about whom you express concern have been indicted, and I'm going to fulfill my duty of prosecuting them. And so you are also questioning the acts that we've listed, and your questioning of the, quote, overt acts is misinformed. Jim, your questioning of the inclusion of the overt and predicate acts in the indictment shows a total ignorance of Georgia law. So, Jim, allow me to give you a brief opportunity and provide a brief tutorial on criminal conspiracy law. As I explained to the public, you're welcome, when announcing the indictment, the overt and predicate acts are included because the jury found probable cause that they were going to overturn the election. She says, and Jim, oh my gosh, man, she's got some serious attitude. For a more thorough understanding of the RICO statute, its application in similar laws of other states, Fani tells Jim, I encourage you to read this book called RICO State by State. And as a non-member of the bar, Jim, since you're not licensed in Georgia, right, you can purchase a copy for $249. Did she even give him a link? She didn't even give him a link. It's very, very rude. She should have put a link in, to the State Bar website, footnote 1 or whatever, and linked it down. Yeah. So, man, so she's just saying, if you need to know more, I'm not going to teach you, but go read it somewhere else. I wonder if Jim's going to be happy about receiving this letter, or what he's going to do about it. Maybe he'll send another letter back. We'll see. Your questioning of the length of the investigation and the timing is unfounded. You say that we just made this up to charge him after 2.5 years and shove this in the middle of an election season. She says, no, sorry, this investigation began with my office believing that critical witnesses would cooperate. Several witnesses did in fact cooperate, voluntarily come forward, and we did start and collect information during 2021. But the reason it took so long is because many witnesses were uncooperative and required subpoenas to compel their cooperation. So as a result of this resistance, we requested and received special purpose grand jury permission to compel them. You're going to find all of that attached in Exhibit B. And also, the superior judges authorized us to do all of this stuff, and they said that we could have disruptions, and so the impaneling was scheduled appropriately. But rather than accept lawsuits and lawful subpoenas, multiple people chose to resist compliance, and they had to force my office to get orders compelling their participation. Lindsey Graham, who never actually got charged, who they interviewed, many of them refused to voluntarily comply. And so that's why we required 8 months to complete our investigation. If you're sincerely interested in improving federal law, Jim, I encourage you to make it incumbent upon your colleagues to cooperate with lawful investigations without requiring intervention by the courts. It's your fault that you took so long to comply with us. That's why this thing took multiple years. Is because everybody should have just bowed down and kissed the ring of Big Fani Willis. She says, hey, Jim, yeah, by the way, we did use federal funds. What are you going to do about it? But we used it for our intended purposes. She says, Jim, you have no basis for your implication that we inappropriately spent federal funds. This office receives money from the DOJ grant programs. I've attached a summary of where we got our money from. And you're going to note that it includes money for our nationally recognized initiative to process long neglected assault kits and prosecute dangerous criminals. We also receive federal funds for hate crime prosecutions, our community violence interruption efforts, and our programs with at-risk children, which should all be obviously stripped immediately from Congress. Just gone. Sorry, kids. Sorry. Sorry, guys. At-risk children. I don't know. Sorry about that. But if you and your colleagues follow through on your threats to deny this office federal funds, which they should, please be aware that you're deciding to allow rapists to go unprosecuted if you take our money away. Hate crimes are going to be unaddressed, and we're going to have to cancel programs for at-risk kids. Sorry, kids. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I mean, it has to happen. I don't know what to tell you. Rapists running free, criminals everywhere, children just running rampant wild. It's total bedlam in Fulton County. Madness. Such vengeful, Jim, and uncalled for legislative action would impose serious harm on the citizens we serve, including the fact that it will make them less safe. The kids, man, the kids. Please note that the DOJ keeps meticulous records of our grant funding, Jim, and I invite you to request the information from them. You will undoubtedly be proud of the amazing work that has been done by Big Fani's office. We serve victims of this funding, and you will discover this office is in compliance with the terms of the funds. To educate yourself on the important work that we do, I want to share this video with you. Did she link? Did she? Oh, she's sending this via email, so the link must be clickable. It is a compelling example of the work that our SACI unit does to grant federal funds. It says our community violence interruption program, also funded by the grant, has also been nationally recognized. And so you're threatening to defund Big Fani is going to cause problems. It has to happen. I don't know what to say. Sorry, Fani. Maybe you shouldn't be a political partisan hack. It's your fault. Your allegations that I have used this prosecution for political benefit are unfounded. She says, Jim, your letter makes allegations that I somehow used this investigation or prosecution in a political manner to benefit with my campaign website. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, listen to this. She says, the allegations that you raise are thoroughly debunked, Jim, and they have been rated false by independent fact checkers at PolitiFact. Bum, bum, bum. Oh, all right, Jim, you idiot. Don't you realize PolitiFact already checked in? Look, they already looked into this, Jim. They already did their research. Just move on, okay? Fani's not partisan at all. PolitiFact says, did Fulton County DA Fani Willis campaign to get Trump? No, she didn't say that. PolitiFact. Well, case closed, everybody. We're done here. All right, below are the suggestions, says Fani. Here are some suggestions that you guys can do on the Judiciary Committee that are productive. All right, so now she's offering some advice to Jim. Hey, Jim, rather than overseeing me illegally, why don't you do the following? I do have some suggestions on how you can engage in productive legislative activity. First, victim witness advocates who take care of vulnerable victims and witnesses in offices are grossly underpaid. We need more money. And so Congress should provide more funding to victim witness advocates across the country. She says, second, the federal government has given money so that prosecutors can investigate old cases. And so you should give more money to us to investigate all untested kits. So we want more money here too, Jim. Third, you guys could be funding a program to turn children around who find themselves in trouble with the justice system. And so Congress should expand this program and give us more money. And fourth, Jim, our crime labs are terrible. Georgia is so overwhelmed. This is great stuff. This is stuff that you see all across the country that you often don't hear prosecutors admit. State crime labs across the nation are not properly funded. It's true. They cut corners. They just make crap up. Stuff has problems. They, oh, no, it's okay. Sure, that's a problem. Put it back in there. Shake it again. Hit it on the side. Oh, there, it's working again. In fact, Georgia State Crime Lab is so overwhelmed, which means, DUIs and like all this stuff is just, the evidence is just garbage because the lab is so overwhelmed. They're all overworked. They all are over capacity. Anyways, that's a tangent. But this is Big Fani, who's, apparently the most perfect prosecutor in the whole country. People are dropping dead in her jails and the crime lab is so overwhelmed. Leadership has informed me it does not have the capacity to test drugs like fentanyl or firearms used in violent crimes. Oh, well, maybe she should have focused on that than spending the last 3 years investigating a partisan prosecution. So they've referred us to private testers to obtain necessary evidence. It's like field days for criminal defense lawyers in Georgia. I'm sure they're having fun with DUI cases out there right now because their own state crime labs can't even process the tests. What a joke. Further, Georgia State Crime Lab does not have adequate financial resources to even properly pay their scientists to test their rape kits, drugs, or other scientific evidence in a timely manner. Nice job there, Fani. Way to run a prosecutor's office. Nicely done. Now, she's going to blame the state facility. Oh, it's out of my control. It's the Georgia state. I'm just Fulton County. Right. Well, her county is a giant county in Georgia. And I'm guessing she refers a lot of that stuff out to the state level. So she's not focused on fixing it, right? She could be focused on fixing it rather than prosecuting people. But instead, she'd rather write ranting screeds to Jim Jordan. She says, hey, the safety of persons in the criminal justice system should be your primary concern. As it seems, Jim, you have a personal interest in my office. You should consider directing the DOJ if you're so concerned about me, Fani. Why don't you send a letter to the Department of Justice to investigate the racist threats that have come to my staff because of your investigation and this investigation? For your information, Jim, I am attaching 10 examples of threats this office has received. See my exhibits. I'm providing these examples to give you a window into what has happened to me and my staff as I keep my promise of my oath to the United States of Georgia and do not allow myself to be bullied and threatened by members of Congress, local elected officials, and others who believe Lady Justice should not be blind and that America has different laws for different citizens. Yours in service, Big Fani Willis, the biggest Fani in Fulton County, Georgia, the DA. And she copied that over to the Democrats, big waddler Jerry Nadler over there in Congress. And so, my goodness, what a letter. And yeah, I mean, there's not many letters we read like this here where people quote themselves in their own letters. I mean, that's just incredible. She literally is, pulling something else that she says to other people and is telling Jim, you better abide. So, very interesting letter. Now, the question is, what is Chairman Jordan going to do about this? I mean, obviously, Big Fani kind of gave him a nice little reaming. And we'll see what Congress has to say about that. Now, hopefully, they're drafting up a response as we speak. And it'll be fun to see where this goes. Because Big Fani Willis is getting yes queened all over the place from people on the left. And maybe they quote themselves too in their own letters. As I always like to say, quote, and then make that the basis of the rest of your letter. Amazing. So Big Fani rages at Jim Jordan. We'll see if Congress responds. When they do, we'll be here to cover it, my friends. I hope you join us. Thank you for subscribing and liking this video, wherever it is you're watching. We'll see you on the next one. All right, now, Big Fani, speaking of her unethical office, we do have to talk about what she is doing with this special prosecutor. And this guy's name is Nathan Wade. So let's see what's happening. Big Fani's office may have crossed some ethical boundaries. Nobody's really surprised about that. But we know that one of the co-defendants, named David Shafer, says that yesterday I received an 8-page solicitation from Wade and Campbell, the law firm. That's these guys. You see, this is an advert that they got in the mail from this guy. Nathan Wade, pictured on the cover, is the Trump special prosecutor appointed by Big Fani Willis. Huh. So David Shafer is a co-defendant. He's been charged with a crime by Big Fani Willis, and he's getting a solicitation for representation from a criminal defense lawyer who is selected as the special prosecutor for Big Fani. We've got a conflict of interest here. So Shafer says, we have notified the judge and we've moved for an immediate hearing. And he's just one of 19 other co-defendants. And this is what he actually posted on Twitter. just sending solicitations in. Here's what the full thing looks like. It says Atlanta Criminal Defense, right? So these guys by trade, are criminal defense lawyers, but because Big Fani needed to go get a special prosecutor, somebody outside of her office, she went and found somebody else. And I don't know, if these guys are friends or whatever, how that worked, but she brought this guy in, but he's only a special prosecutor in this one case, which I just find, detestable, quite frankly. You're going to be a practicing criminal defense lawyer and you're going to be representing people on the defense perspective and then suddenly just prosecuting some people? Maybe only because it's Trump, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. But here, this is what the full letter looks like. And when I was running a law firm, we used to send out adverts. Okay. We used to send stuff like this out to people because what ends up happening is you get booking lists, you get arrest lists, you get indictment lists. They all show up on the public record. And then you can scrape those lists. And there are companies that will take the names, they'll match them with the addresses, and you can send them advertising material. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, this looks like a good one because they actually have his name on it and they actually printed the charge on it. Okay, so they do this at scale. So they'll just print this out. Let's say you get 1,000 people and they're all charged with crimes. They will all get a letter like this, right? And they'll say, Robert Gouveia, urinating in public, whatever, And so you'll have something like that that goes out to everybody. It's so that people will call you and hire you. But if you're the special counsel and you're prosecuting somebody, you don't want to send them an advert. And so David Shafer is saying, yeah, we got that one directly. He said, no, the firm solicited me as a client. It's an obvious conflict of interest. We've notified the judge and we've moved for an immediate hearing on this matter because it's not something that you're supposed to be doing. And if these people are so competent and capable and they are so incredible in their litigation, why are they acting in such an amateurish fashion? Said this guy, Phil Holloway, another lawyer, town hall columnist, legal analyst, and he is saying this may be the biggest embarrassment ever for Big Fani Willis, the Fulton County DA. The private law firm of special prosecutor in the Trump case sends criminal defense solicitation to co-defendant David Shafer offering to defend him in the charge of personating a public officer. The same charge that he is prosecuting. Oops. So here is what it actually looks like. Okay, so Shafer posted all of this stuff on the internet. So they sent him a letter and it says here, open immediately, do not discard. You see here down here in the bottom left, there are rules for attorneys. You got to print something like this. In Arizona, this is actually very small. Ours would be much bigger. It would say advertising material, big red, huge. But this would say Wade and Campbell firm. They sent this letter over to him. And there it is. Atlanta criminal defense. David Shafer impersonating a public officer. Got the charge listed there and everything. They say David Shafer regarding impersonating a public officer. Attorneys Wade and Campbell, Wade is the special prosecutor for Big Fani, dedicate their criminal practice to protecting the rights of any and every individual charged with a misdemeanor, felony, DUI, or traffic offense. We will walk clients through the process and carefully evaluate all possibilities while keeping your family, career, and reputation under consideration. Our lawyers have an abundance of experience handling cases in the state and local courts of Metro Atlanta. And here's the final page. You see right there, Nathan J. Wade. Right there on the page. Our core purpose is to create partnerships that provide clients with peace of mind. Wade and Campbell provides expert advice and zealous representation. In all of our transactions, one variable remains the same: a commitment to respecting and understanding our client's best interest, blah, blah, blah. Please contact us today to discuss your criminal case. Wade and Campbell, that's the phone number. So this is very curious. They are soliciting the people that they're prosecuting. Obviously, that's a little bit of a problem here. And the way this works, right, this is all, I would guess, just automated. So they didn't have any fail-safes in place to make sure that these people didn't get their solicitation. But they're still responsible for that. You can't just say, oops, it's my name, my license, my practice, but I'm not responsible for some other company that's not filtering the names. And we would definitely do that. We'd filter out names and make sure we weren't sending them to the inappropriate people. But we also were never special counsels or anything like that. So we didn't have those inherent conflicts when we were practicing. But this is the issue. And now they have filed a motion for a hearing and to determine sanctions, including saying maybe he should be disqualified for violating his ethical obligations. And now this is an interesting thing. I'm almost curious. What if David had actually called them and hired them, which may have been the smarter play? Just gave them a call, said, hey, I got this advertisement from you guys. Sounds like a great representation. I'd like to hire you over the phone. Can I do that? Yeah, just send me a fee agreement. Let me sign it and just see what happens. See if they ever check, right? Because they might have a conflict check after the consultation. Once they get the name, the case number, all of the info. Like, this is just spray and pray, okay? They're just sending adverts out to everybody. But what if Shafer just called him and hired him? Just say, yeah, sure, sounds great. Yeah, I'd love to work with you. Send me a fee agreement. How much? 10 grand? No problem. Send that payment right over to you. And then he can say, oh, guess what? There's no conflict checks going on here. There's nothing happening here at all. These people don't have any idea what they're doing. It's completely unethical. But that has not happened. Instead, they have filed a motion and they're requesting a hearing on this case. And here's what it sounds like. This got filed out of Fulton County Superior Court. This is Big Fani's courtroom. And this is one co-defendant asking for an evidentiary hearing about the improper contact by Fani's special prosecutor's law firm. Shafer says, Your Honor, the court now respectfully requests an evidentiary hearing because we had direct, uninvited, improper communications by Nathan Wade's law firm. And we want the court to determine the appropriate sanction for this conduct, ranging from just a simple admonishment, just, get your systems better in order, to disqualification from the case, which I think is probably, very unlikely, but you got to ask for it. More than a year prior to obtaining this indictment, Wade was appointed by Big Fani's office to the team. These people were investigating this for a while. The Willis team, according to one article, which was led by Nathan Wade, a private lawyer and a friend of Willis's. Now, there it is. So she's just given him the contract. Special Prosecutor Wade and his law partner, Mr. Campbell, they operate the firm Wade and Campbell, which represents that they are criminal defense law firm. On August 14th, there was an indictment. Weeks after the indictment, the DA hopped on the television and announced it. After that happened, Wade's law firm, the actual prosecutor, sent a communication, which we've already seen, to his home address, and he got on September 6th. His partner said, Shafer, you're impersonating a public officer. And that they're going to walk us through the process. Enclosed is a full copy of the solicitation impersonating a public officer, and it says, please contact us to discuss your criminal case. And, there are a lot of rules about this. Like, I know this might sound like, okay, who cares? They sent them a flyer or something. They just sent a lawyer, a defendant a flyer. Big deal. It is a big deal. Like, there are rules about this. Lawyers bend over backwards to make sure they don't dump on these rules, because if you send stuff to the wrong people or if you don't notify them, it's an advertisement thing. Like, this could really freak people out. Imagine if you're somebody who gets one of these, and I've had this situation pop up. Like, you send a letter to somebody who's not actually charged with a crime. You get the addresses crossed or the names crossed. David Smith gets prosecuted, and somebody gets a letter who's not actually been charged with the crime, and they say, you've been charged with murder, David. Oh, I have? What? They freak out, obviously. They think they've got identity theft and all sorts of stuff. So you've got to be very, careful about this, and you can't use your pressure as a prosecutor or a government prosecutor or as a defense attorney or as a lawyer to put undue pressure on innocent people in society, right? And David Shafer might be a sophisticated person, but what if he's not? What if he says, oh my gosh, I'm being prosecuted and I don't have a lawyer, and now this business partner of the prosecutor is contacting me. Maybe I have to hire him because otherwise his business partner is prosecuting. I don't know what to do, right? Like maybe I need to hire them and give them my life savings, and then they'll get me out of this deal. So it could be a very serious conflict where like it's a shakedown for money, if you want to put it in the worst light possible. So he says at the time of writing this letter, the public here reflected the public record. Oh, this is even worse. That the undersigned attorneys had entered an appearance in this action on August, okay? So they sent a notice to a represented person. Oof, that's not good. Thus, Ms. Shafer was represented by counsel at the time of the unsolicited communication. Now, and that's a long time after, right? Because they sent this letter in, presumably like September or something. So they at least had lawyers for a week or so. Special counsel's Wade's law firm's communication was as represented by counsel is a violation of anti-contact provisions of the rules. But the improper communication here is far more egregious than the typical violation. It's a communication literally with a criminal defendant by a lead prosecuting attorney's law firm about charges that attorney has been responsible for bringing. They say the harassing, the mocking, the intimidating nature of the communication causes injury, saying there is no appearance of fairness or propriety in this proceeding. Wade is shown smiling on the cover of the proposal, and Shafer's name is printed on it. The prosecutor was sending him smiling solicitations. And they praised the firm's zealous representation. It's like a slap in the face, stating that their purpose is to provide clients with peace of mind. What? He's being prosecuted by you, and urged Shafer to contact the firm to protect his family, his career, and his reputation, which is language that defense attorneys use. Don't let prosecutors wreck everything, which is why we always say pure blood prosecution, or, there are pure blood prosecutors, pure blood defense attorneys. And of course, what side of the aisle I'm on. But these people who just bounce around from side to side, like I'll be a defense attorney on Mondays and then go prosecute people on Tuesdays, or the people who are prosecutors for 10 years, then they get their student loans paid for. Then they say, now I'm going to go advocate for the Constitution and criminal defense rights. And then they become these criminal defense lawyers. It's like, you guys are laughable. You've got no values. Give me a break. So it kind of reminds me of that. Like this guy will sit here and say, we're going to protect your family, your career, and your reputation against these overactive prosecutors, blah, blah, blah. Then he turns around and goes and acts as a prosecutor. It's like, what? But they did it. So he says, surely these lawyers, these defense attorneys, so-called, do not believe that Wade and Campbell could represent him against the very criminal charges brought by Wade himself, which again, I think he should have hired them. He should have just called and said, I'd like to hire you over the phone. You take a credit card over the phone, I almost guarantee they would have done it, okay? Because that's what law firms do. Pursuant to its power to control the conduct. Therefore, Your Honor, the court should hold an evidentiary hearing and inquire about what the prosecutor's law firm did and sanction them as appropriate. Hold an evidentiary hearing to investigate this and determine the appropriate sanction for this illegal conduct. Signed by Craig Gillen from Georgia, counsel for David Shafer. Good stuff. All being copied over to everybody involved. It looks like they're copying, all the co-defendants. And the lawyers, Nathan Wade, special counsel's office, it looks like. So yeah, here is the actual copies of the documents. You can see here's the full panel. Christopher Campbell, attorney at law. Do they have a profile for Nathan Wade? So it's like a brochure. Yeah, they're just shipping in a brochure. This is where they're located. Looks like a nice brochure. We had a brochure that we sent out. Yeah, it looks nice. But we never prosecuted people and then sent them a brochure saying, hey, we're prosecuting you and we can help. So major conflict of interest, obviously unethical, total amateur hour, but it's about what you'd expect out from the special prosecutor's office. This is Big Fani's team, and this is what we get. We'll continue to cover, my friends. I hope you subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. All right. Now, we have, I think these are going to be a little, no, these will be, I was going to say they might be a little shorter, but they won't because we've got some clips here. But this is an interesting one. Donald Trump now files a removal action to take his case from Colorado up into the District of Colorado, from the state level up to the federal level, to stop the attempt to remove him from the 2024 ballot. We already know that a group of people filed a civil action in Colorado to keep Trump precluded from showing up on the primary ballots and from showing up on the presidential ballot in 2024. And Trump is saying, we're not going to be playing with this in state court. It's a federal issue. Let's talk about it in federal court. We're going to read through the filing. It's not too long, but this is important because this is the first sign of a strategy from Trump's defense. We know that this is going to be, as Jocelyn Benson calls it, she's the Secretary of State in Michigan, a persistent issue. They want this to be an issue, whether Trump is removed or not. They want him to have to fight it. They want to litigate it. It's going to be more lawfare. He's already bogged down with 4 indictments, tons of civil litigations from E. Jean Carroll and other people. And now this is just another attack vector to get him bogged down with having to even keep his name on the ballot. And in my opinion, at some point, some Secretary of State is going to do something like this. They will remove him, or they're going to make it very difficult for him to get on. And it will turn into a domino effect that we're going to have to battle, because the same people who tell us that they believe in democracy are the same people that want to keep ballots free from their political opponents. So let's take a look at the actual filing from Trump before we hear from 2 secretaries of states who I think are going to be behind a lot of this. We already read through the entire lawsuit brought by these people: Norma Anderson, Priola, Claudine, Christopher, Kathy, and Krista, all filed in the Colorado State Court. But now Trump has submitted a notice of removal. And this is coming from Trump's team. And the other person who's a co-defendant in this is the Colorado Secretary of State. So here's what Trump says. And I think that this might be the same pattern we see in other lawsuits. When Trump gets sued again, I mean, this is going to be popping up all over the country. What's the strategy? Do you battle them in state courts, or do you just start removing them all to federal courts and get some uniformity there, rather than dealing with Colorado and Arizona and Georgia and Michigan and Minnesota, which we'll see? Remove them all up to the federal level so that there is more precedent across the board. You get a ruling in Arizona or a ruling in Nevada, and you can say, hey, Nevada's doing this, Georgia, and say this is persuasive precedent that you should rely on, rather than relying on a bunch of disassembled state precedent. So Trump is removing it now. This is the first sign of what they're doing. He says this case arises under the 14th Amendment. That's why they want to take him off. Although plaintiffs here in Colorado have drafted their verified petition in a manner that ostensibly relies on state claims, which is that they did. In fact, every state claim, indeed every effort to bar Trump from running for president, relies solely on the application of the United States Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 3. So they want this to stay in state courts. But Trump is saying, yeah, but you're relying on the 14th Amendment, which is the federal Constitution, which is federal. They say that here, the plaintiffs, the people trying to remove Trump, they filed a 104-page petition, and we read through a lot of that. And they want an expedited hearing within 5 days. And so now Trump immediately filed this notice of removal to take this to federal court. They say, Your Honor, this court has federal question jurisdiction, and therefore removal is appropriate. They say the basis for removal, obviously, it's a federal question. It's the 14th Amendment, Section 3. Now, they've tried to create their claims, and what's so interesting about this new attack vector is that they're just making this up, and I mean that. Ludwig and Tribe and these so-called law professors, they just came up with this new theory, like this couple months ago, that this is now a self-executing feature of the Constitution, which nobody knew about until they just made it up. So now we're watching as they're adjusting their arguments. Okay, we already read the first draft of this by Florida man. That was dismissed immediately by the judge. He just said, you're dismissed. Trump didn't even have time to respond to that one. But this one is the second draft. This one's a little bit more serious. Trump is now responding to this. The third draft's going to be better, and the fourth draft's going to be much better. So Trump says in this case, they're trying to fashion their claims for relief based on state law. They're citing Colorado statute. They're not trying to bring this into the federal level. Trump's saying that's not what we're going to allow to happen. Now, their effort to ground their petition in state law cannot be an attempt to conceal the federal constitutional issue that we're talking about here. If you review it, you'll see that their entire complaint is based in the 14th Amendment. Specifically, it says, it's the intent of the people from Colorado to conform to the requirements of federal law. They said it. They said it in their complaint. Section 3 of the 14th Amendment is the U.S. Constitution. They cited it right there and there. They've also cited it. They said both the Secretary and this court are required to support the Constitution, which is the 14th Amendment, again, citing the federal law. They're citing it here. They're citing it here. They're citing it here. So in other words, they're saying, Your Honor, they recognize that this is a federal question. They continue. In their second count, the ballot removal people, they say that their allegation states that because Trump is disqualified to serve as president under the 14th Amendment, they get declaratory relief. In total, they say the people suing, Your Honor, refer to the 14th Amendment 41 times in their petition. That's why this is a federal question, is because they keep talking about it. Courts recognize that under the artful pleading doctrine, that we must show that the claims are based on questions of federal law. Here, Your Honor, we've done that. They are talking about the 14th Amendment. They're relying on federal law, and therefore that satisfies our request for removal. They filed their action on September 6. Donald Trump has still not been served a copy of the petition. The Denver District Court docket does not contain a return of service either for the Secretary of State. Nobody's been served yet. And so our removal request is timely. We filed it under the law within 30 days of receipt. We've attached all of the dockets that we need. All of the information that we need has all been attached here. And after removal, we're going to serve everybody with a notice of this removal. And so pretty simple. By filing this notice of removal, Trump's not waiving anything. And for those reasons, we now remove it. So we'll be seeing what the court does in federal court. Signed by Scott Gessler, Jeffrey Blue, and Justin North, all representing Donald Trump. And this is, I think, is a good strategy. It's to not let this be death by a thousand cuts with various different lawsuits in all the various states. Just pull them all up to the federal level and consolidate your defenses. I think just in terms of resources, that's going to be a much better strategy as well. Because other judges at the federal level will look to what other judges do at the federal level. I think it's going to be more persuasive that way. Now, this is interesting because Trump also has another parallel removal possibility, which is the Georgia case. This is a 2024 ballot removal argument, but he also has the federal immunity claims in the Georgia prosecution. Mark Meadows, we're still waiting for removal on that one. And so this is about the 2024 election, and they are removing this one. But this is going to be, I think, a strategy that they're going to have to employ many times over. We're probably going to see this again repeatedly throughout the 2024 election because we've got two different secretaries of state here who are both talking about this as though it is an issue. If they're talking about it like it's not resolved, that means this is 100% a part of their plan. The fact that they're talking about it, in my opinion, means they're going to do it. So this is Jake Tapper bringing these people on, warming up this concept, getting their base acclimated to it, A/B testing it with the American public, and constantly testing to see how they can keep Trump off the ballots.
A new lawsuit filed in Colorado is trying to keep Donald Trump's name off the ballot. This lawsuit claims that under the 14th Amendment, anyone who has taken an oath to uphold the Constitution is barred from holding future office if they engage in insurrection or aid insurrectionists. This is an argument that has been made by some legal scholars, and now a growing number of organizations are calling on secretaries of state to disqualify the former president because of his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Efforts, I should note, he has not been convicted in any court of having done anything illegal for, at least not as of this broadcast. I'm joined right now by two secretaries of state, Steve Simon of Minnesota and Jocelyn Benson of Michigan. Both are Democrats. Secretary Benson,
Democrats.
let me start with you. Is this something that the state of Michigan is looking into? I'm going to go to Secretary Simon first. Secretary Simon, is this something that your state, the state of Minnesota, is looking into at all?
Well, in terms of our office, the Office of Secretary of State, we've been very clear. This is not our call. We are not the eligibility police, whether it's a constitutional argument or a residency argument or an age argument. That in Minnesota is left to the courts. We have a tool, we have a vehicle in law for people to make these kinds of challenges. So if what you're asking is whether I or our office, if we are considering unilaterally acting, we are not and we will not. Our presumption is if someone files for office in Minnesota, they are entitled to a spot on the ballot unless and until a court tells us otherwise.
So that
there you go, right? That's going to be the key. No, we're not going to do anything about it. It's not my decision. I'm not going to unilaterally take somebody off, but some judge somewhere said something sometime. And that's the because.
That certainly makes sense. You need a legal precedent, I would say. What about the politics of it? David Frum, who is a political pundit of sorts and writer, he wrote on Twitter, quote, "Suppose secretaries of state in one or more swing states succeeded in keeping Trump off the ballot. Then suppose President Biden wins re-election by winning the electoral votes of states that debarred Trump. What does this country look like afterward? Chaos," unquote. I mean, he's looking at the idea that
obviously
this would be an unprecedented move.
It would be insane.
And politically, it would be very problematic. You are in a swing state. How do you think that politically this would play out?
They don't care.
Well, I think it's safe to say there's risk. He's enunciated some of that risk. Arguably, there's risk the other way as well. That's why I think this should be the province, and is in most states, I gather, the province of the courts and not elected officials like me or others. They should decide it based on the facts and based on the law and without regard necessarily to political considerations. I assume that's what's going to happen here. I assume that this one way or another will find its way to the U.S. Supreme Court, whether by way of Colorado or any other state where there might be a pending lawsuit.
The U.S. Supreme Court on planet Earth would never, not this court and not on this planet, would never keep Donald Trump's name off a ballot in any state. I can't envision that ever happening, just practically speaking. Do you?
I think that they might just defer to the states, right? It's the states' rights. The states can govern their elections however they want to. They're not going to say Trump can be on it or off of it. I still think that's a long shot. I think that they would not allow that to happen. I mean, truthfully, but I can see that happening. I mean, there's, by the way, there's precedent for this because the same thing happened in 2020. We said, hey, there's all sorts of election problems here all across the country. And this was after the fact. But the Supreme Court said, well, we're not going to get involved in those things because it is up to the states. So it's the hands-off approach to this. And look, I know that sounds insane. OK, I get it. Even Jake Tapper asking this question, like, there's no way a Supreme Court would allow this to happen, right? No way. And I sit here and go, oh, gosh. You're right, Jake. There's no way. There's no way. That's crazy. But then I think about, well, we all said that about a lot of different things in this country many times before. I thought it was crazy that we would ever be locked down, honestly. I was sitting here saying, are we going through this right now? I was talking to my people at my office going, is this happening? Are we serious? What? In America? Locked down? What? I couldn't believe it. And it was, that was one ordeal, and we all went through it. We all woke up the next day going, here we are. And same thing. Now, indicting a former president 4 times. I had an ugly feeling in my gut it was going to happen, but, it was this thing. Are you sure? Are you really sure this is going to actually happen? Could this actually happen in America? Boom, we wake up 4 different indictments of a former president. People talking about putting him in jail. And a trial happening in months with 12.5 million pages of documents. Like, all of these things are insane. Insane. I know. The idea that Trump wouldn't be on a ballot in 2024 is insane. I know. But so was everything else. And here we are.
I mean, look, it's hard to say in this sense. I mean, you're right. It seems on its surface unlikely. But I have
does.
learned a long time ago, guessing what courts are going to do is problematic. I mean, this is a legal theory that's been embraced by people on both sides of the political spectrum, conservatives as well as progressives. So I don't know. There's no telling, and who knows what way it arrives at the court through what case, based on what findings by a court below. I just don't know.
Yep. Secretary Benson, welcome back. We're having some technical issues
Thanks.
with you. Is this idea of keeping Donald Trump's name off of the ballot in the state of Michigan because of the 14th Amendment, is this something that you are seriously considering?
Well, I think it's a compelling legal question, and
Compelling.
there is an existing lawsuit in our state that was
Very
filed
compelling.
several weeks ago,
Yes.
and now we see other cases popping up around the country that will ultimately ensure the proper place for this determination is made in the courts, which it should be. So it's something we're seriously looking at, and I've been talking with colleagues in other states as well about this as we proceed to create a process
Yep.
that ensures any precedent here does also not allow this to be misused in the future by officials who might want to block candidates from the ballot simply because they disagree with them politically.
Did you hear what she just said? We're going to remove Trump from the ballot, but make sure that this can't be used again in the future to just remove people off politically. They're going to do it. Look at her face. She's going to do it. They're thrilled about this. Somebody's going to do it. They've already got judges lined up, no doubt.
Ultimately, the U.S. Supreme Court on a national issue like this is going to be the final arbiter. I expect that decision will come sooner rather than later, but we should also expect this as a question, as an issue, to really be a cloud throughout the entire election cycle.
A cloud.
Your counterpart, Secretary Benson, in Georgia.
She's right about that. It is going to be a cloud. It's going to be a ton of litigation, tons of money. They just need one judge to do it. They don't need a lot of states to do it, and they can have a split. It's fine. If they win and they seize power again, who cares about the political ramifications? It's like they're concerned about the political consequences of it. They think that they've got the country on lockdown. They're rounding up anybody who opposes them. They've got, journalists who are out there speaking freely, being prosecuted. We've got Owen Schroyer, right? He's got 4-month request from the DOJ. These people are psychopaths. We've got a bloodlust that is just infused in their entire existence. And they're going to do whatever they can to just stop Trump. So if they can keep him off the ballot, but win, that's the end game. There is no other real consideration there. Because if Trump wins, they're done, right? There is no alternative for them. And they think that this man is Hitler, and the movement behind it is full of, white supremacist MAGA Republicans or whatever they say. So they really are out of options at this point. And as we saw, Joe Biden's numbers continue to jump in the toilet. Jocelyn says it's a persistent cloud. Of course it is. It's part of their tactic.
Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal about this. It's titled, "I Can't Keep Trump Off the Ballot." And in it, he writes, "For a Secretary of State to remove a candidate would only reinforce the grievances of those who see the system as rigged and corrupt." Doesn't he have a point?
Yeah, there's a lot of real concerns there. And frankly, one of the biggest things that is impressing upon me in this moment isn't simply this question of, are state election officials really the proper, deciders in this as unilateral decision makers? I don't think so. I think the courts are.
Yeah, the courts are.
But secondly, our job as state election officials is to ensure people can trust the system, people have faith in their vote and our democracy. And though I will follow the law and uphold the Constitution, whatever that may be, as first and foremost, a North Star for me is ensuring our democracy is one that gives people choices, that respects voters and political parties opportunity to elect their preferred candidates. So all of that is tied up in this as well. And it's why we as state election officials really aren't the proper arbiters of this decision. It really is the courts. And that's ultimately how this is going to play out.
All right, Secretaries of State Steve Simon.
Okay, that's the new talking point. They're just going to defer to the courts. Whatever the courts want to do, they're going to do it, and they're not going to be people who are making the decisions unilaterally. It's going to be some judge somewhere, like some Chutkin somewhere or some Kaplan somewhere, who just is insanely deluded, thinking that Trump really is an insurrectionist. And how many times have we seen this? We've seen this from other judges in sentencings. Proud Boys Enrique Tarrio is getting, 22 years? Because of the insurrection and blah, blah, blah. So how is it possible that Trump is on the ballots if they think that. Okay. And especially, my friends, we are not even close to the finish line on this yet. They are going to convict him before those arguments are made. So they're going to try to get that trial done in D.C. before the election. That conviction will be used as a pretext. Right now, they're just seeding the ground, okay? They're just planting the seeds. Yeah, removal, removal, removal. We'll defer to the courts. They're going to wait for a felony conviction. Jack Smith may still hit him with an insurrection charge or a sedition charge just to really put the icing on the cake here. Depends how bad their side is doing. Then, at that moment, some judge somewhere will say, insurrectionist or felon convicted. And that will be the first domino. And these people are just plotting. They're sitting here, no, we want to empower everybody. But they're going to change this game again. They're going to come back out and say, so this never happens again. And Trump is not a real candidate. Anyways, he's an insurrectionist. And so in order to prevent this from happening, we have to do this, but we'll never do it again. We'll see. This outrages me. I'm sure it outrages you. We'll continue to cover it, my friends. Thank you for subscribing as we do. All right. Now, what are the Republicans doing about this to stop some of this corrupt prosecution? Jim Jordan sends a letter over to special counsel Jack Smith and to him directly saying, hey, Jack, you've got some interesting people on your team like this guy. Jay Bratt allegedly was threatening or implying threats to a defense attorney called Woodward. Woodward is representing a co-defendant in Trump's case. And apparently during negotiations, Jay Bratt, the prosecutor, was saying to the defense lawyer, you know, I know you want to be a judge on a superior court here. It would be very helpful to your application if your client flipped and worked with us against Trump. Obviously inappropriate. Woodward is not happy about that as a defense attorney. Extremely offensive, unethical, and improper. And so Jim Jordan is sending letters over to Jack Smith, him in particular. He says, hey, Jack, special counsel, U.S. Department of Justice, we got questions for you, buddy boy, coming from the Committee on the Judiciary from Jim Jordan in Ohio. September 7th, he says, hey, dear Jack, the Committee on the Judiciary is continuing its oversight of the DOJ's commitment to impartial justice and its handling of a special counsel investigation against Biden's chief opponent, Trump, in an upcoming presidential election. Last year, Jay Bratt, one of your senior prosecutors and top aides, allegedly improperly pressured Stanley Woodward, a lawyer representing a defendant indicted by you, Jack, by implying that the administration would look more favorably on Woodward's candidacy for a judgeship if Woodward's clients cooperated with you, Jack. So Bratt pressured the lawyer to flip his client, and if the lawyer flipped the client, the lawyer would have been appointed as a judge. See how that works? That's the type of DOJ we're dealing with. Jordan says, all right, Jack, you know, this type an attempt to inappropriately coerce Mr. Woodward raises serious concerns about the abusive tactics of your office. In November, when your prosecutors were trying to secure cooperation of Walt Nauta, one of the co-defendants in the J6 on the classified documents case in Florida, when you were trying to get him to cooperate, Walt allegedly moved boxes at Mar-a-Lago. Prosecutors, including Mr. Bratt, summoned Mr. Woodward, the lawyer for Walt, to a meeting at the headquarters. They said, hey, Stanley, the lawyer, we got something to talk to you about, man. It's an urgent matter. We can't talk about it over the phone. Just get over here. So Woodward said, all right, I guess I'll come talk to you guys. When Woodward arrived, the lawyer, he says, Mr. Bratt, the lawyer, the prosecutor, threatened him. He said, your client Nauta should cooperate because he had given potentially conflicting testimony that could result in a false statement. So when your client talked to us, his story changed, which is perjury, lying to us. We're going to charge him with false statements to an officer. And they're having this conversation back and forth. And Mr. Bratt, he says to Mr. Woodward, the lawyer, he says, you know, Stanley, I know you're representing Nauta, but gosh, I didn't think that you were really a, quote, Trump guy. And he indicated that he was confident. He said, I didn't think you're a Trump guy, and I'm pretty sure you're going to do the right thing here. And Mr. Bratt referenced Woodward's, the lawyer's, pending application for a judgeship on the Superior Court. I don't think you're a real Trump guy there, Stanley. I think that you're going to come to the right side of this issue, and you're going to see the light, especially if you want to get that judgeship on the Superior Court. And that we might look more favorably upon Mr. Nauta if he was a cooperating witness. We're going to put you on as a judge. Give it more favorable consideration if your client flips. Disgusting behavior. Mr. Woodward subsequently, the defense lawyer, informed the Justice Department that they would have no further communications unless they charged Nauta or brokered a deal. He said, all right, you guys are done. Don't ever ask me to flip my client in exchange for a personal benefit. Get out of here. After Mr. Woodward declined to give in to the intimidation and the coercion, shout out to Stanley Woodward out there. Cheers to Stanley Woodward. Mr. Bratt once again sought to induce his cooperation by attacking Mr. Woodward's representation. So they're attacking the lawyers now, right? Mr. Bratt filed a motion in Nauta's case because he couldn't flip him, raising conflicts of interest. He says, oh, well, if your client's not going to flip, then how about I just get you off of your client's case? He says, Stanley Woodward, the defense attorney, represents two other witnesses who could be called to testify at trial, and that they should procure independent counsel. So we're going to take the lawyer's clients away from them by saying they're conflicted off. The lawyer is unethical and hasn't properly advised his clients about the representation. And so they wanted a hearing so that Woodward's clients could be advised about the conflicts, right? Prosecutor wants to drag the defense clients in so that they can wreck the relationship between the defense client and the defense attorney. To bring them in and say, Mr. Defendant, you know that your lawyer is representing other people and you should have doubts about him. Are you sure you want to do this? Just to shatter that relationship, as though the attorney, Stanley, can't have that conversation with them. So it's like an admonishment type of a thing. Mr. Woodward's reply stated that the intimidation threats were an attempt to diminish the court's authority over the proceedings in this case and to undermine exactly the attorney-client relationships without any basis for doing it. So Jim Jordan says, all right, Jack, listen. The department's mission is to ensure impartial justice. Yeah, right. By upholding the rule of law, meaning all employees, including Mr. Bratt, have to obtain and maintain the highest standards of ethical conduct, if you believe that. Mr. Bratt's attempt to bully Mr. Nauta into cooperating, first by extorting his attorney and then by alleging a conflict of interest that precludes his attorney from the case, seriously calls into question your team and your ability to remain impartial and uphold the department's mission. So, accordingly, Jack, here's what we need so that we can fulfill all of our oversight obligations. Please produce the information soon. All documents and communications referring to any appointment, meeting, or other visit by Mr. Woodward to the DOJ, the defense attorney, including the Office of the Special Counsel about Nauta's representation. We also want all documents between the Office of the Special Counsel, you, Jack, the Office of the Attorney General, Garland, and the Deputy Attorney General related to Woodward and his representation. So I want to know what you guys are talking about Nauta and Woodward. And we want all documents and communications related to the application to fill a vacancy in the District of Columbia Superior Court. Ooh, that's fun. All should be sent to us no later than September 21st at 5 p.m. We have broad powers of oversight under Rule 10. If you have any questions, Jack, let us know. Sincerely, your friend, Jim Jordan, Chairman on the Judiciary Committee. And this is fun. So, Jack Smith now receives a letter from Congress investigating his corrupt prosecutor's misconduct. We'll see what Jack Smith says in response to this, if anything. But this is absolutely appropriate. And I'm very grateful to see that Congress is on it. When we get a response, we'll see. what it says. And remember how this pattern goes. It's always a request for information, then usually a non-response, sometimes a second request, sometimes a non-response, sometimes we get a response, but they're almost always never in compliance, which means we walk ourselves down the path of subpoenas. And we love to see those subpoenas, and we'll wait to see if they come here. We will cover it when they do. If they do, we hope you join us when they hit. Thank you for subscribing, my friends, wherever it is you are watching this one. All right. And now, one final segment on the day. What a scam. The Hunter Biden plea deal. We know how botched it was, but was it really botched, or was this kind of concocted so that Hunter could claim immunity no matter what happens? We know that Judge Norica rejected the plea deal and apparently the diversion deal, but Hunter's lawyers say that the diversion deal was just a private contract between them and the DOJ. And they've been acting as though it's been totally valid and that it is in effect, meaning Hunter is literally immune. And so this is what Andrew Weismnn, a former DOJ lawyer, had to say about this when he was asked about this on Meet the Press. And he says that this was all just kind of a botched ordeal. This was all in shambles, which is absolutely true. It did not go according to plan. But the end game was the same regardless. If Hunter gets immunity, regardless of whether the deal went through or whether it was botched, they win, don't they? So here is Weismnn explaining what he thinks about what the DOJ did.
This has to do with the special counsel investigating Hunter Biden, where we got the notation that an indictment could come at a date certain at the end of the month in September. And I guess it feels like there's a missing or if, or something else. If a settlement is reached, like, is there something here? Like, why file that in the future? Why not, if you're going to indict, then indict yesterday?
Well, I have to say, I think that the special counsel, the sitting U.S. attorney and his team really messed this up to a fare thee well. The judge overseeing this asked extremely cogent and normal questions with respect to a proposed agreement that had all sorts of abnormalities. And the assigned prosecutor, when asked, admitted to the judge that there was no precedent, no legal precedent for the manner in which this was being constructed. That's not to deal with the sort of the substance. And so the court said, I'm sending it back to you. Mm-hmm. It is really a mess now with respect to the two types of charges. There's tax charges, and then there's this potential gun charge. But Hunter Biden's lawyers have a really good argument that the gun charge has been resolved, that there is a separate standalone agreement that the prosecutors made to defer that case. And so if there are charges...
If that's true, that diversion deal includes broad immunity.
That are brought by this special counsel, I think you're going to see Hunter Biden making a motion saying that's precluded by the agreement that we reached, and they're going to ask for specific performance of that agreement.
Yep.
I have to say, this is, it's not the Department of Justice's best and finest day in court, but it to my mind, it's a sign that Merrick Garland really was not involved in this, because this is just not the caliber of work that comes out of the Attorney General's office.
That's just so cute. Isn't that a cute opinion? Well, you know, this was kind of botched, but they're probably regretting it. They're probably realizing it was a bad day in court. I'm thinking to myself, what are you, nuts? They got exactly what they wanted. I mean, if this is the argument that they can win on, and I'm not sure that we're there yet, but it is an argument that they created. The DOJ created this, which is what they wanted. How do we know they wanted it? Because they tried to cram it through in front of the judge. The judge didn't take it, so they just did it on their own. And Hunter's now going to claim it. They gave Hunter exactly what they wanted. So I would say it's kind of the DOJ's best day. Rather than them taking the blame on this as though they orchestrated and concocted a fake scam plea deal to pull the wool over all of our eyes, they just say it was just a mistake. Oh, it was just a mess, and the judge screwed it up, and the whole process came off at the wheels. No. They went in wanting Hunter to have immunity. They didn't get it exactly, but they have the same argument that they can continue to use. And they're going to say, well, Merrick Garland wasn't involved because if he was involved, it wouldn't have happened this way. It's like, what are you talking about? This is exactly what they wanted. This is all part of the strategy. It's the second best option. They would have liked blanket immunity, but since they couldn't get that now they're just going to have this gray area. Hunter's going to continue to sort of comply with the diversion. We're going to fast forward a couple years when Republicans decide, if they decide they want to go after Hunter, then he's just going to say, I've got this immunity deal. And I guarantee some judge somewhere is going to uphold it or try to. So Ted Cruz says, enough. We know that there is massive obstruction, massive corruption in the Biden crime family. It's time to get going.
We know that Hunter, for example, texted using WhatsApp a senior Chinese communist official saying, I'm sitting here next to my father, next to then Vice President Joe Biden. I'm sitting here next to my father, and if you do not give me millions of dollars, my father will retaliate and punish you. That David Weiss and the Biden Department of Justice seems to have no interest in investigating. In fact, the two IRS whistleblowers, who are both career IRS employees, both Democrats, they came forward and said they asked to check the GPS locations to see if Joe Biden was in fact sitting next to Hunter when he sent that text saying Daddy's going to retaliate. And the Biden DOJ said, no, you cannot look into Joe Biden. Absolutely not. They blocked it.
And that's just one smattering of evidence. We know there is a lot more. James Comer says this is probably the biggest scandal we've ever seen because of the intentionality, because of the longevity of it, because they were concocting deals all around the world with Hunter as the bag man. Joe Biden and the Biden crime family is getting paid on the back of it.
Joins me now. Congressman, when you get an impression from Democrats in the House, do you feel like they're scared of an impeachment, or do you feel like they're maybe egging you on?
Well, honestly, Jesse, I think they're egging us on because, history has shown that when Clinton was impeached, the Republicans lost the majority, and when Trump was impeached, the Democrats lost the majority. But what we have here, the difference between, Clinton lying about his affair and Trump having a phone call asking about corruption with Ukraine, which, by the way, did happen by Joe Biden. What we have here with Joe Biden is a situation where he's lied countless times about his knowledge and involvement in what is a major corruption story. I think this is the biggest corruption story that we've ever seen from a high-ranking politician in the history of America. I mean,
It is big. Millions of dollars. It involved quid pro quos to get other prosecutors fired, billions of dollars, threats to Chinese energy officials, and so on. And when it's supposed to be investigated by the people who do things like investigations, they're totally involved in the obstruction of any actual consequence. There is no justice. It's an entire double standard. Here's Marjorie discussing.
But it's shocking, absolutely shocking. It seems like every single day more and more comes out. Now we have this information that the European Union completely approved of Viktor Shokin's job and the job he was doing fighting corruption and his investigation into Burisma. But yet it was Joe Biden as Vice President of the United States. He was the one that didn't approve of Viktor Shokin, and we all know why. The 1023 form told us exactly why, because he took a $10 million bribe between Hunter and Joe to get Viktor Shokin fired.
Yeah, it is an extraordinary.
More Marjorie.
Americans to keep up with all of the details that have come out on this story. Yeah. But I think you've also pointed to something that's more concerning, very grave and serious, not only to myself, but people like you, Amanda, and many of your viewers watching your show, is that how many times did people try to come out and tell the truth? How many whistleblowers came out trying to tell the truth and point to the corruption and point to the abuse of power happening with Joe Biden and these very serious high-level offices that he held, but yet every single time they covered it up. And this is where I'm going with this is the reason why I want an impeachment inquiry, a very long, drawn-out impeachment inquiry, because I believe the impeachment inquiry will start with Joe Biden. And that is who we will be investigating most importantly to see if we need to impeach him. I am already there, but some of my colleagues are not. However, I believe if we pursue a very serious impeachment inquiry and dig very deep into the layers of this, we are going to be uncovering many people, many bureaucrats, many unelected bureaucrats, many people that work in these agencies that also abuse the power of the positions that they have and covered up Joe Biden's crimes. And I think this impeachment inquiry needs to be done. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care if it takes all the way to the November 24 election and perhaps further. It must be done, and we have to do it very carefully and in a detailed manner, because I believe we're looking at a giant conspiracy, a very big conspiracy of Democrat officials, not only that were in Obama's administration,
DOJ,
perhaps
IRS.
Barack Obama himself, but also federal bureaucrats that work within the agencies that have all conspired
And the
together
Trump
to
administration,
cover
too.
up Joe Biden's
They were
crimes
all in there.
so that they could produce a candidate like a Manchurian candidate and put him in the presidency and then hold all of this over him to force him to do it the way they want it.
Good stuff from Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she's right about that. I mean, we saw it openly. We saw the DOJ was obstructing through Leslie Wolf and other people there. The FBI had also their moles. The IRS agents who were also investigating it were involved in this cover-up. Secret Service got notifications from the transition team. Everybody was involved in this cover-up. And every time there's a congressional request, even Christopher Wray's like, oh, the FD 1023, I don't want to show it to you. Why? Why not? Nobody wants to spill the goods on the Biden crime family because I think they're probably all involved in the grift or a similar grift, just making sure that he is protected because they have control over him. Wrapping up with Byron Donalds, who says, enough already, let's go.
Well, look, good to be with you. One real quick point I got to make about government spending. A message to Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans. We're not signing off on any clean CR deal. It's time to secure the border. Now, back to Hunter Biden. The reason why this email is so damning is because, once again, it proves that Joe Biden knew exactly what was going on the entire time. If he had no idea, why is his communications director putting together an email with Eric Schwerin stipulating to that fact? The reason why you put an email together like this in such detail and they're going back and forth is to try to create further separation. What'll clear all this up are these 5,400 emails that the National Archives has had this entire time, where Joe Biden is using fake names to communicate apparently with his son and a whole lot of other people.
Why do you need Robert L. Peters at PCI.gov email addresses if everything is above board? I don't know why you would need something like that. Why would the DOD or the email server people at the federal government create a fake alias for you? Well, hopefully, as Marjorie says, they keep digging and digging and digging. The impeachment inquiry, whenever we get to it, and I think we'll actually get there at some point, it will be the opening of the box. We'll start looking inside, and we'll look forward to having you join us as we continue to cover. My friends, thank you for subscribing and liking this video wherever you're watching it, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, we covered some good ground on this lovely Friday Hunter's immunity deal, maybe. Jim Jordan sends a letter over to Jack Smith. That's fun. We'll see what Jack Smith has to say about it. We've got the Secretaries of State who are kind of hemming and hawing about this removal thing. I think that they're absolutely going to try to do it if they can. The federal removal filing submitted by Donald Trump to take his case up to the federal level. Big Fani's prosecutors sent in an illegal, unethical advertisement to a co-defendant, and we saw Big Fani really let loose. I mean, Big Fani really let it rip, didn't she, in that letter? Fired up over there. About Jim Jordan just doing a little bit of oversight. But now, my friends, it's time to hear from you and to see what you have to say about it. We're going to go over to our members-only after party here in a minute at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We would love it if you joined us and chatted with us over there. We also have a brand new website, robertgovea.com. You can check that out. You can get access to the daily reports, sign up for the newsletter that gets delivered to your inbox, and we would love to see you there. All right, but now let's see what you have to say about this from our friends over on the YouTubes, the Rumbles, the Locals, and then we'll check in on the X. But joining us, and thanks, K-Bean, for clipping for us today. Much appreciated. We've got Richard Vaught coming in as a supporter. Welcome aboard, Richard. And thanks for joining us on YouTube as a membo. Hey, for members, we're doing a Saturday show tomorrow, Saturday morning stream tomorrow morning. So don't forget that. We love our member Saturday shows. We got Kaiser of Third Age, been a member for 2 months. Thank you, Kaiser, for joining us for 2 months. Awesome. First month is the hardest, you know. Second month, it gets easier. Third month, it's like we're family. So it's good to have you, Kaiser. Thanks for being a member for 2 months. Says, good work, Rob. Have a good day. See you tonight also. Oh, yeah. So we'll post something tonight also. I'm going to go down to an event and then we'll post some updates from the event, just like we did last night. Stop sniffing kids, Joe. Been a member for 4 months. Woo, we're getting close, almost halfway there to a baby. Says they are getting upset in Texas. So yes, that is true. I mean, a lot of people are upset in Texas. We've got the Ken Paxton impeachment. There was a federal court that just decided that it was appropriate to remove the barriers in the Rio Grande and there's a lot going on. Stop sniffing kids, Joe. It's good advice for the president. Thanks for being a member for 4 months, my friends. We've got this one from MAGA Hat. Says, breaking, Arizona Senator Sonny Borrelli declared a statewide ban on election voting machines after last year. He claimed almost 1 million votes were uncounted in 2020 Arizona's election. So he's fighting for that. I mean, I don't think a state senator can declare a statewide ban, but if he's working on it, that's interesting. Thanks for the update on that one, MAGA Hat. We got Cohen says, what's up, Cohen Levine? Says, little thing for your birthday, couldn't do it at work, so you won't think Jewish people are cheap. Well, I would never think that, Cohen. I would never think that. But thank you for that. It's very generous of you. And thanks for being here, Cohen. Good to have you, Cohen. Thanks for sending the dono in. Really grateful for it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for always chiming in and being such a great member of the community. Thanks. I appreciate you. We got this one from Catherine. Says, good afternoon, Rob. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you, Catherine. Hopefully you had a beautiful week over there. We got Radicy. Says, speaking of your schmedium shirts, earlier the week you said something about them looking too big. I believe it may have something to do with you adding Field of Greens to your diet. Place your ad here. We all know you have increased leg day. Let Joey know I'll be watching more Marvel movies due to his reviews. I'll tell him that, Radicy. Yeah, thank you. I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on with the shirts. Either I'm getting thinner or smaller, or the shirts are getting bigger. I actually think the shirts are getting bigger. I think they're just making them looser for people because I haven't changed in size. But I ordered the same. The brand sizes are changing, But anyways. Or I got to just add some more girth. I got to beef out, Got to beef out to fill out the shirts. But either way, thank you, Radicy. Very much appreciate it. T. Lewis says, happy Freaky Friday, everyone. Hello, Rob. Hello, my fellow watchers. Hope everyone is having a great day. From our friend T. Lewis in the house. Thank you, T. Lewis. It is a lovely Friday. It's a beautiful, beautiful Friday. And we are grateful for you, T. Lewis. Thanks for being here. We got this one from Voice of the People. Voice is bringing in 10 membos. Voice, thank you for doing this. Who's coming in? Oh my gosh, Tupac's back. Voice of the People resurrected Tupac Shakur as a member in our community. Well, amazing. Voice of the People. We got Janine S is coming in. Tazzy Wazzy, Penn H, Jennifer N, Karen O, Carol B coming in courtesy of Voice of the People. Annie's here. We've got Private and Public and Kimberly B coming in thanks to Voice of the People, bringing in new members. Thank you very much, Voice. Appreciate you. And we'll see you in the morning. Catherine says that letter made my brain bleed. Fanny's letter. Yeah. Well, hopefully you wrote down her quote. If you don't live in reality, then I'm going to make you smack reality, or whatever she said. That's Fanny's work. Good to see you, Catherine. Jay Cuthbert says, Robbie, sorry I missed your birthday. I'm in a graduate course and it's hard for me to make the show. Anyway, happy birthday. James, Jay Cuthbert, thanks for being here, man. I know what graduate courses are like. It's a lot of work. So I appreciate you being here. No obligation to be here. I'm glad you made it. But my friend, thank you so much for the birthday dono. Very generous of you. And I hope your program's going great. Hopefully you're learning lots. School's important. School's more important. So thanks, James. We got this one from T. Lewis. says, concerning the federal funds Fulton County receives to assist in all the programs Big Fani listed, all Jim has to do is highlight the increase of crimes in Atlanta, which is clearly ignored by the DA's office. Did you notice that, T. Lewis, how she brought that up for him? Plus, the Fulton County jailhouse is ignoring the welfare of inmates and has been for years. So it could be that federal funds could be misused. This woman has the nerve. You're telling me, man, doesn't she? She's got some serious nerve. And she even put in her own letter that our crime lab is overwhelmed and we can't prosecute assault crimes and DUIs and drug crimes. Okay. Well, maybe it's because you spent the last 2.5 years interviewing hundreds of people to prosecute your political opponents. Maybe you should have focused on the actual work. Barb's Loves Alaska says, wow, Jim really triggered Big Fani. LOL. Gosh, she was fired up, wasn't she? Yeah, I mean, she was really letting it rip over there in that letter, just letting it rip. Michael Allen Hughes says, don't be like Mitch. Hydrate. We are compromised. That's good advice. Yeah, don't be like Mitch and have multiple brain aneurysms in front of our very eyes. Stay hydrated, my friends. Indeed. Thanks for the reminder, Michael Allen Hughes. Rocky Water. What's up, Rocky? Says thanks and peace. Thanks, Rocky. That is all. Thanks for being here, my friend, and thanks for the dono. NY says keeping a presidential candidate off a presidential election is a federal action. Bush versus Gore, the Supreme Court got involved in Florida's ballot process because it was presidential. Yeah, and I think you're right about that. I think it is a federal issue. They don't want it to be a federal issue, but Trump's going to continue to try to remove it because it is the 14th Amendment after all. Catherine Rex says ACLJ is working on the ballot case. I feel somewhat hopeful. Our country is sliding down a very dark path. I no longer recognize the United States of America. I feel you. I see what you mean. I mean, it's like it's in different parts. I still do recognize a lot of the United States, but it's a lot less of it, That's for sure. There's still a lot of incredible Americans here, and you're amongst them. So we hang out with each other, and I think we can recognize each other. But you're right, a lot of the country is unrecognizable at this point. Thanks, Catherine. Rick Gregory gifted a membo to Dire Gnome coming in. Thank you, Rick Gregory, and welcome Dire Gnome coming in on the house. We appreciate you guys. We got John Allen says, what's up, John? Says, Rob, I missed the chances to wish you a happy birthday. I apologize. It's been busy and hectic around here. Well, I'm good. It's been busy and no need to apologize, John. I appreciate that. Thanks for stopping by. Says, but I want to wish you a belated happy birthday. Here's a little dono to go with the e-card. I understand that you're an old man now and can run for president. It's true. I can. But Vivek beat me to it. That would be awesome. But I wouldn't wish that target on my worst enemy right now. Tell me about it. Also, myself and many others didn't get to sign the e-card until late that night. You might want to check it again. By the way, love the new Schmedium shirts with the prints on them. Good choices. Wishing you and all the listeners out there a wonderful day and a great weekend, my friend. Thank you, John. What a nice message. Yeah, we tried a new Schmedium earlier this week. I liked it. I like that print. Yeah. Thanks, John, for the feedback. And I'll have to get more of those, I suppose. Good feedback on that. I got another one that's got stripes on it, and I think it might be a little too much for the camera, which I'm kind of irritated about because it's orange, and I think it might look cool. I might wear it anyways, and if you spaz out on the screen, well, then we'll learn something from that. So thanks, John. We got Ray Rock says, how do you keep from giving up? I already have depression and other stuff. I keep finding myself wanting to just throw up my hands and quit. That's a good question, Ray. Man, and I could talk about this for a long time. How do I keep from giving up? So let me just give you one quick answer, man. And it's to find the middle position, right? And the middle position is where you have somebody that is inspiring you and you are inspiring somebody else. You have a mentor and you find a mentee. You take something that you learn from others that somebody gifts to you, you incorporate it and you give it off to somebody else, right? You help somebody else along the way. And I think a lot of the time what was missing for me personally is that giving it away. It's being of use to somebody else and helping somebody else. Because no matter where you're at, if you feel depressed, if you feel like you don't have anything to give, if you feel like you're useless, I felt like I had a lot of shame and guilt and like I didn't have anything of value and all the things. You actually do, right? You actually have something of value. And no matter where you are in your life, no matter where you are, there's somebody who's in a different position that's worse off than you. Doesn't matter where you are. And in a 12-step program, no matter which one it is, you'll often find yourself, an analogy in these programs is if you are, let's say you've got 7 days sober, okay, and you think, I have nothing to give to anybody. I've just got 7 days sober, my job's in disarray, my life's in disarray, my relationships are disarray, whatever. You still have 7 days of sobriety, okay? There's one person out there that doesn't even have 24 hours. Thinking of being sober for 24 hours is insane to that person, but you've already strung together 7 days. Just like, 30 days of sobriety might be insane to you, but somebody else has done that. Just like years is insane, but somebody else has done that. And so once you start accumulating those little wins, those tiny little wins, small little bites of victories, you bundle those up and you can help the next person down the line. And if you're in that middle position, what I found is that I stay energized and motivated by the people who are ahead of me, and I can do something useful and good for people who I can serve, I can be of use to. And that's the framework, man. That's been the framework for me that's been very useful in my life. And it often keeps me from being depressed because I am not a person who's naturally, I don't know how it comes across here, but I don't wake up in the mornings thrilled and enthusiastic. I'm not a naturally, I would say even a naturally optimistic person, right? And I've talked about this a lot on Locals, but we all start at different levels in our lives. Sometimes we start at charge neutral. We wake up charge neutral. Sometimes we wake up at charge positive. We wake up, it's going to be a great day. Sometimes we wake up charge negative. And sometimes some of us wake up at charge negative all the time. But that doesn't mean we can stay there at charge negative. We've got to do things to build us back up into charge neutral or to charge positive. And so one way that I do that is to come out of that charge negative is to build automatic sprinkler systems to keep me going, to keep me energized, to shift my attitude from negative to positive. And that is through meditation. That's through finding purposeful work, which is what we do here. It's through community. I've got a men's group that I meet with every single week. I've got networking groups like the one I'm about to go to today. I've got all of these things that are automatic sprinkler systems that just pop up and help me go. Because I know if I'm on my own, I'm not any good for myself all alone. You guys keep me going. The work that we do keeps me going. And it's a process, right? And this is taken, and I'm still working on this, man. So I recognize that it's not going to be a solvable thing. There's no end game in the, there's no like wake up tomorrow, hey, depression and all anxiety is solved. Like that's never going to happen for me, at least. I don't think. Maybe it will. Zen, Buddha, enlightenment, nirvana, all that stuff. I don't know. But it is a process. And so I try not to put too much pressure on myself, do little small things day by day to just keep putting one foot in front of the other, baby steps. And then, you wake up one day and you've strung together 6 months of positive things, and then you can give something back to somebody else. So that's what's been useful for me, my friend. And in terms of this political stuff, this political world, it's just one part of our lives. And the other parts of our lives are really much more impactful to our total well-being. And if we focus on our lives and ourselves and our skill sets and our depression, like we got to put our masks on first. The airplane masks, not the other masks, before we can put the mask on for somebody else. So really got to focus on that. Then we can start helping our community, building families, building societies that we want to see and live in. And that's the plan. All right. So Ray, hang in there, brother. Okay. Keep coming back, man. Keep coming back. We'll see you back here and keep putting one foot in front of the other, and we'll just keep plugging along, man. We're going to win in the end. We'll see you back here. We've got Crash says the old adage is, reread that super PO'd email, then delete it. Fani is going to ruin the day. Oh, that's a great comment. Yeah, so Crash, you're right about this. It's like that's the email that you delete. You don't send it, right? That's the one you just erase it. You say, oh man, all right. You let that one just percolate in your drafts message for a few days, and then you decide not to send it. Good stuff. We got John Allen says also, shout out to John McGarvey, who really helped save the day by helping me and to K Bean, who's working hard, modding and clipping, and love all the mods in the house. We got the best mods in the house. Speaking of K Bean, clip this one from our friend Dolphin Fan, who is the man who brought in 5 new membos in the house. We got MD Harris. MD Harris had a nice comment. But Simon H is here. We got Steve C, Steve H, Cheryl F, Linda L, and Toenail Less Cupcake is all in the house. Courtesy of Dolphin Fan is the man. And thank you, Dolphin, for bringing in those amazing new membos. And welcome aboard, everybody. We will be doing a members only after party here in a short few minutes. And so if you're a YouTube member, don't forget to join us on the Telegram link on the community tab section on YouTube. And thanks, Dolphin, for that one. We got Karen Taylor. Welcome aboard as a supporter over on YouTube. And we'll see you tomorrow for our members only stream. Welcome aboard, Katrin Taylor. We got A Bad Poet says, Trump's call to Ukraine got him spanked like they were hiding a war or something. Watch for those knee-jerk reactions on the left, like Fani crying. Yes, so almost like me think the lady doth protesteth too much. It's like, Fani, why are you getting so hysterical here? What are you so upset about? What are you freaking out about? Relax. It's just a letter from Congress. What's the big deal? Yeah, and you're right. Trump did get anything Trump did was, insurrection, ruining America, but they can do all the same things. Tree Climber says the ACLJ.org fighting to keep the DJT, to keep Trump on the ballots. They have a petition to sign. Okay, interesting. So ACLJ.org. And I wonder what that would be for, like what that petition would be useful for. I don't know what that would be useful for, but certainly, donate and support their cause. Maybe they'll submit it as voters in their ballots or in their filings. But I'm glad that there are people fighting for this. I mean, ACLJ.org sounds awesome. The Democrats have millions and maybe billions by the end of it of extra money that are pumped into their coffers to go into the election. Lawfare is just one angle, and they're off on it. We got FMF Doc says, Ray, for the love of our nation, brother, sorry, Rob, for replying through you, but I think that it is important to remember. Says, for the love of our nation, brother, for the love of our nation, another reason to keep going. Because we love our nation. We love our fellow men and women. We love our liberty-loving patriots out there. And we got to keep going, man. We got to keep going. And we're on the right side of the universe. We are literally in alignment with the fabric of reality because we are knowledge seekers. We are seeking to share knowledge and hash through ideas. The other side is not. One side is about growth and building things. The other side is about seizing and destructing and silencing and taking away your liberty from you so that they can better manage your lives. And so we're going to keep going because we're on the right side of the universe. Raymond Loera says the left is arguing the insurrection was criminal. Is the left arguing the insurrection was criminal or civil crime? Neither, really. Well, insurrection has not been charged. So nobody's been charged with a criminal or civil. There wouldn't be a civil crime, but there's been no criminal charge of insurrection at all. There's not even been any conviction against Donald Trump such that you could make the argument that he was a convicted felon such that he could be removed from the ballots. They're just saying that because January 6th happened and because he's been charged and because of the event, there's a self-executing feature of the Constitution that precludes him from being on the ballots and that they can just do it on their own. And again, you see how the argument has changed a little bit? It's not exactly like the secretaries of states can just flip a switch, but they don't need to because they'll just get sued by a Democratic organization and as part of a settlement or as part of a fake defense, right? Like, for example, let's say Mark Elias sues Jocelyn Benson in Michigan. Do you think Jocelyn Benson is going to put up a big fight to put Trump on the ballot? Of course not. So then she'll just roll over and then the courts will say, well, so I guess we can't keep him on there. And then they'll keep him off. Melody says, thanks for the pep talk, my daily dose of Rob. Thanks, Melody. Well, thanks for being here, and as I said, this is a symbiotic thing. There's no way that I could do this without you guys. So I'm very grateful for it. It's not possible without you. So really, very much thank you. And I get motivated back by you. So I appreciate you being here. I mean it. We got Steven says, can they appeal if the judge denies it in DC or I'm DC? So it depends I see what you're saying. So like if they file and they sue to keep Trump off the ballot and they lose, can they appeal it? Yeah, I mean, they certainly could. You could always appeal. Everybody can always appeal. It just depends on what the claim is. And for example, some things may not be appealable. Like if in the middle of a criminal case, if you want to file an appeal on a discovery problem, that is generally not appealable until the end of the trial. But then at the end of the case, you could certainly appeal that. So yeah, it just kind of depends on the circumstance in particular. But my friends, those were amazing, very generous donos from our friends on YouTube, on Rumble, on the locals. And thank you everybody for sending those in and supporting the work that we do. Really couldn't do it without you. But let's, before we get out of here, say hello to our friends on the X. And then we're going over to locals for our members only after party, where we're going to hang out for a little bit longer and debrief on the day. And who is over on Twitter? Oh, good. Oh, look. Hey, it's just me. It's just me watching myself right now. It's just one of us. That's okay. Let's have a good conversation, Rob. All right. Anybody here? We got, hey, Fred's over here. Says, I'm so happy this brat stuff is getting some publicity. Yes, I agree with you, Fred. He feels like a snake. We got Al Holman says, another nice week of work. Thanks, Al. Says, gracias. Thanks, Al. And then George says, 2018 election fraud calls for covert investigation and to assess and address the findings of the investigation. You think Trump should subpoena the finding of the investigations, or thoughts on this? From George. Well, I'm not sure what evidence Trump is going to present, if much, or if he's even really going to testify or present any evidence. Don't know. Jeffersonian says Jordan should subpoena Fani the day her dog and pony trial begins. Over on the X, my friends, very much appreciate those nice comments on the day. But we're not quite done yet. YouTube members, we are going over to Telegram, so grab the Telegram link if you want to join us. It's in the community tab section. We're going to head over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com for our members only after party. We'd love it if you joined us. Check out the website, robertgovea.com. Be sure to get your Field of Greens at fieldofgreens.com, and you can save 15% off with code Robert when you check out over there. Want to thank the mods and the meme smiths who mod and meme smith the fort down for us all throughout the week to keep things nice and beautiful and orderly. Big shout outs and thank yous to our friends Vienticus Prime, K-Bean in the house. We got Just Cause, Playing Hooky, Ronnie Cole, our friend Zulu, Beyond Geostars, Zach Nichols, John Allen, Janek, Dog Digger, Donut Mind Me, and John McGarvey modding down the forts for us. Shout out to Sleepy Dog Lee, our friend Gigam Gigam, and Nathan N810, all in the house. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Friday, a little earlier today. I do have an event for the rest of the day, and so for our members, I'll post something later tonight. Don't know what time it's going to be because it's always kind of up in the air. But there will be some more stuff coming later for our members, but we're done here for the week, my friends. And Saturday shows for members too tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow. But for today, we are done here, and it is a lovely Friday. We've got another weekend ahead of us. And so, my friends, I hope that you had yourselves a beautiful week and that this weekend you're able to unplug a little bit, get some recovery time in to rejuvenate those batteries, get outside, get some vitamin D, some fresh air, some sunshine, some family time, some friend time, some fun time to break out of the traditional mold so that we can recover, restore ourselves, re-energize ourselves so that next week we can come back and do it all again. Because together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful weekend, my friends. I'll see you right back here on Monday. Bye-bye.